listen, if you don't have a good, when I'm turning, a lot of times I'm paying attention to what I'm doing and I'm not paying attention to what you guys are seeing, even though I've got a monitor in front of me. So if you're not seeing what you need to see, you need to tell me. If you need me to explain something, you need to tell me. Because as we move along, if I don't know, then I can't correct the problem later. And every time I do one of these, you know, I get an email that says, "Oh, I wish you had showed such and such, or I wish you'd have showed this." And I always think, well, why didn't you ask? Because if you would have asked, I would have gladly done that. So please speak up. We're all friends. If I mess up, you know, it'll be entertaining. So let me put on a little bit of quick safety gear because I got a little behind and I apologize for that. So I need to put an apron on here real quick. Does anybody know why apron's safety gear? You know why this apron's safety gear?
Keeps you out of trouble with mama.
Because if at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, your wife calls you from work and says that she's had something irritating her in her underwear all day, and she went to the restroom after she got out all her busy meetings and found a wood chip in her undies, you're going to find out real quick that this is safety gear. Oh, no, I didn't tell them that. Okay. Well, apparently we're still having some difficulties. Okay, so let me change this. There. All right, so here we are. We've got our glue block here. If you'll notice right here is a spacer. After I use these glue blocks for a while, they kind of get narrow. And if you put them on and they've got narrow, your threads on your end of your spindle will actually push this off. So you're going to have to put some kind of spacer. I've got a wooden one around here, but earlier I couldn't find it. So this is the one you get. So we're going to round this up real quick. I've already checked the speed on my lathe. I've got it turned up on the higher pulley. Spindle roughing gouge. We're going to anchor it. We're going to come in here on the bevel. We're going to back it up, raise the handle until it starts to cut. And that's actually round enough because we're going to have to round it again in a little while. So we won't go beyond that right now. This is to help you guys see a little bit better, but I can see that it's going to be in my way a little bit. Back my tailstock up just a little bit. Give me some room. I use this. This is a piece of hard maple, and I got to tell you, it's the hardest hard maple I've ever had. I was doing a demo last week, and every time I tried to make an end cut down here, it wanted to kick my tool out. So I've been working on this so that I actually look like I know what I'm doing. We're going to come in here and we're just going to square this end off. See, that's what it's been doing to me. Rudy, you saw that, didn't you? All right. You got that. View here.
Have you stopped talking?
No, I haven't stopped talking in my, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's not changing cameras for me.
I'll be right there.
Okay. Well, let's try it this way.
Wait, don't touch Zoom. I'll be right there.
No, I got it. There we go. All right, can everybody see that now?
Yes.
I'm glad I'm better with a lathe than I am with all this software. Let me see if I can get that a little bit square right there. We're just gonna hollow this out a little bit. I'm kind of doing a no-no here. I've got this flute opened up really wide, as you can tell. And the reason is I'm going in here unsupported on an unsupported cut because that's stopping this hard grain from kicking this tool out. Every time I go in like this, that grain is so hard and try and roll it, it wants to kick this tool out. We'll try it correctly. Got my flutes up and down, totally neutral. Go in, roll the tool, come across. Come back unsupported, make a little cut on it back here to get some of this out of my way. Try to keep this out of your way where you guys can see it. Totally unsupported cut. I want to leave a thickness right here of about 4 millimeters. I call it a fat 1/8 of an inch. An 1/8 of an inch is just a little bit too thin because when I go to resize it here in a little while, the outside retrue it, that's not going to be quite enough. All right. What I need to do now right here, I need to make sure that that shoulder is, I've got the thickness I want right here, that's still a little fat, and that the shoulder going down through is really, really square so that when I fit my lid, it fits the same all the way down. I've got a squared scraper. This happens to be one produced by Packard, Cindy Drozda. I also have a real cheap one down here that works just as good somewhere. So any square nose scraper here that you can line the side of this up with your bedways will work just fine. It doesn't have to be a fancy, expensive scraper. To be honest, I don't even know where I got this one. So we're going to come in right here. I'm doing two things. I'm relieving that. I'm going to pin it up a little bit right there. All right. Let's see what I've got. That's going to work. Now, let me tell you about this square scraper, something you need to be aware of. It has a cutting edge here, and it has a cutting edge here. But this little corner right here is always cutting. So this is the part that always gets dull. So you actually don't end up with a really crisp edge right here inside. And in this particular case, it doesn't make any difference on this or on the other side of the box. Sometimes it makes a difference, and when it does, I use a spindle gouge and I relieve that somewhat. So basically that's what we got for a lid. I think it's still a little fat here. I kind of feel like I got a late start and I'm kind of rushed, so kind of bear with me. I'll calm down here in a minute. I'm going to thin this down some more. All right, that's better. All right. Okay, that's pretty square. I'm going to take some more out of the center here just a little bit. guys can talk to me while I'm working if you want. Rudy will tell you it kind of gets lonely standing up here talking to yourself. All right, so here's the texturing tool I'm going to use. It's a Robert Storrs texturing tool. I have 3 cutter blades for it. I think it comes with 2. Maybe I have 4. This one, as you can see, is starting to wear a little bit. See the slack in it? This particular tool does not have a bearing in it. So you have to do a couple of things. You have to keep it lubricated, but you also have to set it so that as this cutter tip is turning, it's turning so that this screw is tightening right here. Because if you don't, it'll untighten that screw and it'll come apart on you. Now, it's like any other type of scraping tool. We want the tool to be above center and to come in at the center. So I'm going to texture this in a minute. I'll show you a video if I can get it to run on how to actually use this tool. It's got a negative rake right here on this edge, and that's the side that should go up. I've got it set at 45 degrees here, or about 45 degrees, to cut a spiral here. I'm going to bring my lathe up to about somewhere just under 500 RPMs because this non-bearing tool doesn't like anything. Doesn't like much faster than that. I'm going to come in with some really light pressure and let this wheel start to track so that it tracks in its same groove, and it'll have to kind of get a little memory here, so to speak. So I start it with a little light pressure, kind of increase the pressure, and then I start across the surface. Now I want you to notice that you may not can see it yet, but I'll show you in a minute. My right hand is moving faster than my left hand. And when I show you this video here in a second, you'll see why. All right. And there's our nice little knurl. We didn't split anything. Does that show up on there?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, it looks good, Jack.
Right there. Just a little bit for you. Let me know if I make you seasick. All right, so we got a nice little knurl here. What I want to do now is I want to put a little accent line on it. I got a little pointy tool. I've also marked this little pointy tool on the part that's where I have the part that's going to go up. So I'm going to come in here. I have to come up with my wrist. This tool really likes to be high. Otherwise, it wants to grab. I'm going to come up a little bit higher. I'm going to ease it in here and see where I need to be so that I'm at the very end of this knurl. I'm going to bring some speed up. I'm going to ease the tool in. Check it. That looks good. Here again, I'm going to find the end of this knurl right here. Bring the speed up. Ease into it a little bit. Check it again. That looks good.
Jack, was that just a 3-point tool that you used?
Yeah, that's just a 3-point tool. Nothing fancy about it. That one happens to be, if you look at it, it happens to be really pointy, and I don't know why it came that way. Most of them aren't quite that pointy. I don't know if you can see it there. Most of them are a little bit duller. Now, I've got some plain old sanding sealer here. I use lacquer sanding sealer. And I'm going to put a little bit in here because I can't get back to this later. And
Jack, is that your recipe for the sanding sealer, or is it commercial?
this is def sanding sealer. Hang on a second here. I got it. This is one nice thing about working in your own shop. Everything's right here. This is def sanding sealer, just like that. I cut it 1-to-1 with lacquer thinner to thin it down a little bit. You can cut it with acetone. Lacquer thinner and acetone are almost the same thing. So let me speed this up, rough this out, right off just real quick. Yeah, looks pretty good. I think we can move on.
Did you want to show us the video?
Yeah, let me, yeah, I can do that now. Let me change to a different camera and show you something else. So here's a variety of different textures you can cut with that tool. This tool works better on end grain than it does on side grain. We're going to do both. We're going to do the side of this thing. This is almost circles, and it's all whether you get a spiral like this or you get a tight spiral like that. It depends on the angles you put on it here. And what I've done here is, if you look at these, is I've written on the back how I got this particular design, so that if I say, hey, this is what I want to do on a box, I can pull this out, I can look at it, and I say, oh, I was tilted, which is normally about 45 degrees, and I use medium pressure on it. And I look at it and I say, well, this is a piece of ash here, and what I'm going to use is, you know, oak's open grain, so I have to compensate a little bit for whatever it's turned on. But that's the way I do those. Now, how the tool's used, let me run through that real quick, see if I can get this video up and running.
And just by the way, you should definitely tell a joke.
Oh, should I? Okay, so here's the tool. I've engaged it, as you'll see, just like I showed you. I put some pressure on it. You notice in this first one, I haven't moved my right hand any further than I moved my left hand. I've held everything totally parallel and pull that tool out. Now, if you look, you'll see right there where I'm pointing, that tool split that knurl. And the reason it split that knurl, I think, is going to be obvious here in this next video. If not, I'll show it to you. So let's see if we can get this one up and running. So it's the same concept, doing it the same way to start, putting the tool in, letting the cutter tip start to track. You have to give it a second of light pressure, because if you go in too fast, too hard, it'll track crooked and you'll immediately mess it up. Now see how fast my right hand is going out compared to the video before? It's increasing much faster. And now I get a nice smooth knurl on it. So let's go back to that, and let me show you, and let me tell you why that happens. If you see right here, this is where I start. And if you count those, and I'm not going to count them, the diameter right around here is about 1 inch. But the diameter out here is closer to 9 inches. The size of that ball, or the size of that tracking wheel doesn't change. That knurling wheel, it stays the same. So if I've engaged, say, 10 points here, 10 points out here would mean they were that far apart, and it can't do that. That wheel can't turn that way. So what I do is, when this tool goes in like this to start with, okay, and these are at a 45-degree angle, by turning that tool this way and advancing the handle faster than I advance the head, you see this angle is now actually changed. It went from here to here. And if I went all the way around to here, maybe you can see it better there. That's perfectly straight. And yet it goes to 45 here. So by bringing the handle forward faster than I bring the cutter blade forward, allows this angle on this cutter head to change in relationship to the wood, so that when it starts tracking here, it ends tracking here, and you don't split these knurls. Like, that's a split knurl right there, if you can see it, where that cutter tooth broke.
Raise it
Didn't
up
go
a
any
little.
further and broke out of there. Oh, I'm
Raise
sorry.
it up. There you go, Jack.
Yeah. So there's where the cutter tooth was tracking, and right there, it couldn't get any bigger, so it jumped over to here. and it's double tracking. Now it's tracking here, here, and here. Whereas here it's tracking here and here. Now it's tracking 3 times. Okay, so that's the way you avoid that. Is you advance that handle a little bit quicker than you advance the bag. All right. Questions so far? Haven't lost anybody? Well, I haven't gotten totally confused yet either, so I guess the night's young.
Hey, Jack, I'm assuming, I haven't done too much, but I'm assuming the tight grain maple works better than oak or ash.
That's true.
Okay.
Let me see if I can, I barely have some volume here. Let me see if I can get this volume a little bit higher.
Does it start chipping out the softer grain?
It just kind of wallows it out, and then what happens is the harder the winter growth wants to jerk your tool around, so you don't get a smooth finish. You get a really rough finish on it.
That's what I've had happen. Yeah.
I'm having to do a little bit of earphone change. Somebody say something. Let me see if I got some volume now.
How's that, Jack?
I think it
Can you
went
hear me?
down. Give me a count here. Somebody give me a 1, 2, 3 count.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
Jack.
Yeah, I got it kind of halfway. Okay, so here we are. I don't have any volume here. I apologize, folks. We thought we had. Now say something, somebody.
Jack, can you hear me?
Yeah, barely.
Okay, I may be having trouble on my end. I think
Yeah,
my
no,
mic is going out.
I've got it now. Now I may lose my hearing. Okay, so this is where we're at now. Okay, what we want to do next is part this piece off. I'm going to use a thin parting tool. The 1/16 of an inch parting tool. This is actually a homemade tool. I make a lot of my own tools because they're cheap, and the steel in all these tools are in a good quality tool. The steel's the same. So if you go to a garage sale and you have the opportunity to pick up 4 or 5 scrapers, and you've got 4 or 5 of those own scrapers anyway, go ahead and buy them because you can regrind them and make anything out of them. Okay, so real quickly, we're looking at this end right here. We're about right here. We want to come off, say, about right here. Okay, that'll give us enough room to maneuver this thing. We're going to make the part there. We're going to come back out. We're going to drop about half this tool over so that our actual kerf line here is about half again the size of this tool. As we go through, we're going to wallow this tool back and forth like this. Make sure we keep it cutting. I failed to do this several times on several of these little tools, and the blades on them aren't very strong. Let me slow this down. They get hot. This speed gets hot really fast, and the blades are really, really thin, so they break off really easy. If you come out like this, you got to be real careful getting back in. You'll notice I'm also not cutting it straight across. And the reason I'm not cutting it straight across is because I've got to hollow this face out anyway. So I'm going to use that wood in the top. All right, we got our top off. There's our top. Now we're going to cut us a tenon for this to fit on. I do it a little bit different than most people. I use a old gouge to cut my tenon, and I'll explain to you why as I go along. If I come in here with this straight tool and I try and cut a tenon like this, and I overcut it, there's nothing I can do but part that off and start over again. And I have witnessed people kind of crawl this top way on down as they go, missing it. And I miss them sometimes, so this certainly doesn't answer everything, but it kind of gets me started here. Wasn't supposed to do that. But Rudy, I hadn't solved the problem.
You said you solved it when you were practicing this
I
morning.
know I did, but you know, hey, if it can go wrong, it'll go wrong. So you know what I need to do now? Is I need to get rid of all of that because now I've overshot it, and that's not a problem. I was talking to Rudy earlier today, and I said, you know, if something can go wrong in a demo, it usually will. I also like to, and I think that Lee Scott told me this. He says that being a demonstrator is kind of like being a NASCAR driver. Some people came to root you on because they want you to win. Some people came to root the other guy on. Some people came just because they want to see a good crash and burn.
That's right.
You know, the problem with doing that, getting a little catch like that, is it really makes you nervous. And you wonder when the next mistake's coming along. And it's kind of getting close. So when it starts to kind of grab like that, or it kind of wants to catch like that, that's when it's starting to get close. You want to slow down and take little bites, because if you overshoot it, you can't put this wood back on. It's getting even closer there. Not quite there yet. That's just almost there. Can everybody see that? How it's fitting there? Yeah, I think we're close enough to try this. We're gonna go back to a square scraper. And ease in right here. It's on center. Ease in right there. Kind of square this all up. My camera's right in my way. I'll make that just a little bit taller. One more cut. Famous last words. That would go on there, but I might have trouble getting it back off. I have on past occasions got them on and couldn't get them off. This is where you don't want to get in a hurry, even if everybody's sitting there waiting on you to get done.
Hey, Jack, do you ever allow it, take a little extra off or make it looser for putting finish on it?
No, I don't, because
Okay.
right now I'm trying to leave it tight because I'm going to jam it on here, and we're going to go ahead and go with that. I don't know if it'll come back off later. It won't quite go on all the way. Okay. I don't have it very deep there. So I'll loosen it up later and put some finish on it. But I use the finish later if I overshoot it, or, you know, this wood moves. Even though this is kiln dried wood, it's going to move. And what's going to happen is sometimes the box gets tighter, and sometimes the box gets looser. If it gets looser, which I use the finish to take up for it, if it gets tighter, you have to cut it a little bit more. Okay, I think I've got it too long. That's the only problem. I may have it too long in here. So give me just a second. We'll thin this down. So you remember I told you earlier, there's a bunch of different ways to make boxes. This is just one way. And the disadvantage of this particular box style, it's a lot quicker to make. It's real simple. You don't have to have a chuck to do it. So guys that don't own an expensive chuck can make this. The disadvantage is that we've reoriented this top wood 180 degrees. We started off with this grain pattern running like this, and now we've turned this grain pattern like that. So you do not get a grain match on this. That's the reason you texture it. That's also the reason that I see what I did. I missed that edge right there. I left it just slightly rounded, so it's not going to pull all the way up. That's okay. We're going to jam it on. We're going to let it go. It's going to have a little gap in it, folks.
It's a design feature.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, it's called a reveal.
So now what I'm doing is, that's my safety measure. That's a pretty big reveal, though. I got news for you. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Let's see if it'll go on any further. Nope. Well, it is what it is. What can I say? So now I can come back and I can true this whole thing back up. And I want to do a little bit better job of truing it up this time than I did the first time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this mold gouge like a skew. I could use a skew. I could come in here, or I can just take this mold gouge, lay it on its wing just like this. I've got the heel right here in my thigh to control it. I'm going to lay it in here, find my bevel, drop it back just a little bit so it starts to cut. It will start to cut, I think. Maybe it won't. There it is. I think I should have picked a different piece of wood. This is the second demo I've done with this wood, and I've had problems on both demos. So maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. Let's see what it
Jack,
looks like.
I'd like to unmute for just a moment. I'd like to unmute everyone for just a moment. Is
Go
this a
ahead.
good time to take questions?
Yeah, go ahead. I've got to
Okay.
fix this problem here. Whatever reason it's
Okay.
tearing out.
I have unmuted everyone. If you have a question, now's a good time to ask it.
What other kind of wood would he use?
You could use any tight grain hardwood. I use this for demos because it dyes well, because it's a light colored wood. Cherry works really well. Sycamore dyes well, but it doesn't take the texture quite as well. And this just tore it all out. I don't know what.
Thank you.
We'll try this. That didn't work. We'll try a shear scrape. See if that helps. Well, that felt better. Okay, we got a little bit of tear out right there. Get it out. What we want. Folks, it beats me. Rudy, are you watching this?
Yeah. What do you
You want to give me? You see anything wrong with this?
No?
I don't either. Well, I got the tear out. Got a little bit of tool mark here, but it's not too bad. A little bit of tear out right there. I don't know why it's tearing out, folks.
You know, Jack, I don't think you're broadcasting in high def, so I don't think anybody can see it.
Thanks, Rudy. It always helps to have somebody on your side. All right. So
It looks good.
we're going to go back to our texturing tool here. We're going to present it. Doing on a flat surface like this, there is no diameter change, so there is no advantage to try and sweep it forward. We're going to come in here. We're going to bring our speed up to about 500 RPMs. We're going to come right straight. We're going to point this tool right straight at the center line. We're above center here. We're going to point it right straight at the center line. We're going to let this tool start to track. And then we're just going to ease it down. I don't know what it's going to do when it hits that opening. But we're going to find out. I'm going to slack off the pressure just a little bit and go back. That looks about right. That'll put the end of our box somewhere right here. It looks like a good proportion to me. All right, so now we'll check that. We got a nice clean cut, no split knurls. Looks good. The tear out doesn't even show.
So, Jack, on the speed that you're sliding the texture spiral tool down, if you go faster, does it spread out the knurls?
No, it does not. The knurls are set by the tracking wheel. What it does, if you go fast, if I had a piece of soft material, I would be going faster. This is hard. I have to go slow. I have to let it dig in just a little bit.
Okay.
So you can kind of feel. It's kind of one of those things you kind of have to feel the teeth digging, and when they feel like they're getting a good clean cut. Now, if you mess it up, if you don't get it deep enough, you can come back, and I'll show you how to do this while I'm doing it. I'll see where I laid the texturing tool. I was done with it, so I laid it down somewhere. This is not supposed to happen at home, people. I'm frustrated. Don't even see it now. Here it is. Laid it up under there. Okay. So if you don't get it deep enough, you can come back. You can come back and you can ease this tool in here again. And it'll generally start to track in the same spot. So you did.
Wow.
So we got a nice clean. See these groove here a little bit deeper than those.
Right.
So you can redo it if you don't get it cut deep enough. But the speed, the hardness of the wood is going to dictate the speed.
Okay. And the RPM you said it was still about 600 or something?
But I'm doing it under 500. If you go above 500 with this non-bearing wheel, it wants to chatter and it doesn't want to turn at the right speed. It won't free turn. It wants to kind of start jerking. When you use the bigger one, and I have a big one, and I'll tell you what, I use this one 10 times more than I use the big one. The big one has a bearing in it. You can go a little bit faster with it, but it's also designed for big material. Go ahead.
That's the one I got. I got the bigger one.
Yeah, well, the bigger one's a little bit easier to use. You can run it a little bit faster. Now, since I didn't get a groove here, a real good joint here, folks, I'm going to introduce you to Woodturner's friend.
Jack,
Yes.
one of the things that I've done with a texturing wheel is take a piece of maple that's about a foot long and do different speeds and different angles, and then mark the piece so that I have a record of what each speed and angle will do.
So you basically did the same thing here that I've done here. Yeah.
Right,
sample
make
pieces.
a sample
Yeah.
so that I can
And-
refer to it later.
I pretty much leave that tool locked at this 45-degree angle because it gives me the results I want. And once I started getting that, I didn't want to change a whole lot. So I left it. We're going to come around here to this end and see if we can face this off a little bit cleaner and put a little design on the top. We want it to turn the correct way, though. They don't cut really good. I'd sharpen my tools one day, and for whatever reason, I had my lathe in reverse, and I came over here, and I was wondering why That brand new sharp tool just wouldn't cut. And you know, I was slow that day. It took me a while to figure it out. And then I was talking to another turner who told me he did the same thing in a demo and he couldn't figure out why it wasn't cutting. Now see, that tool, this was jumping, when I was going here totally neutral earlier, just like this, that tool was wanting to jump on me. It didn't that time. So I guess, you know, I don't have all the answers here. Of course, I never claim to. Be a good turner, learn from my mistakes. Something came loose.
Hey, Jack, can I ask you a joke?
Yeah.
What did the buffalo say
Oh,
to
come
his son as he was
Nah,
dropping
don't
him
tell
off?
me that. Don't tell me that joke. Don't tell me that joke.
Oh, I messed it up already.
Yes, you did.
It's why you laugh at my jokes.
Stephanie, I'll type you the joke so you can get it right.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'll get it wrong.
Okay, so I'm going to try and shear scrape this because that lid is slightly loose for whatever reason because I don't think I got a good fit on it. Which ought to make the rest of this really interesting. I have another piece of this wood. I think I'm going to throw it away. Too far into it to start over. All right, we're going to live with it. I'm going to put a piece of sandpaper on it, and I didn't plan on doing that. You guys want to see this other camera here? Well, see, I got a little tool mark right here in it. I'm trying to. It's not really going to matter. I'll just stop the knurling there. I'm going to cut it all out anyway, so it's not going to be critical. Man, it looks terrible, folks. Let's see what we can get here. Let's try again. Well, that's a lot better, even though it's got a little point in the end of it. All right. None of that's going to show because we're going to put this tool on it again. Let me slide you down here. You're going to lose that perspective just a little bit. Give myself some room. Tool rest comes a little bit above center. Backs up enough that I can put the shoulder on it. I need the shoulder right here to sit on that. I backed it up. Looks good. 500 RPMs or so. That's 470, and I jumped to 506. We're going to engage it right here. Let it start tracking. Did you hear the sound change? I don't know if you heard that. I'm going to advance my hand. Now, I don't know if you can see my hand in the picture because I can't look up right now, but you see my hand advanced a lot further than it did earlier. And I got a good clean spiral. Does anybody know why my hand moves so fast on that one? No takers?
Is that because it was concave rather than convex?
That's correct. So let me show you right here. So when we started earlier and we were in our lid, we had a lid like this. Lid looked like that, okay? And we were tracking that trackball. Let me slide that over a little bit. Can you see that? We had that trackball right here. We see as that trackball went this way, it automatically changed to contacting here instead of here, which is the same thing I'd have done if I'd advanced my hand. You following me? So when we went to the top of the box, which is here, and I'll draw it this way. We went to the top of the box like this, and that ball was tracking right here. As it moves, it wanted to, if I came right straight out, it would have tracked back here, and I wanted to track over here, so I had to advance my hand twice as far here on this one. I had to come out twice as far as I did here on this one. This one only took that. This one took that. Everybody follow that? Well, of course they did, because nobody said, Jack, I ain't following that. What do you mean? I don't know.
I think you're doing an awesome job.
Yeah.
A little lacquer thinner will take that right off.
No, it won't. Lacquer thinner will leave my board up. However, a little Windex. Red's the worst color to grab because it's the worst color to get out. All right. We'll worry about it later. A little buffing compound, take it off. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? So here's where we're at. We're gonna take this thing. Now's a good time to start asking questions, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm gonna slide this back. I'm gonna throw this rag. This is a good clean rag. I want you to notice that. I'll throw that rag right there. I'm gonna take the sanding sealer. Bring these RPMs up just a little bit. Take the sanding sealer, and I'm gonna seal this. You see why I put that rag on there? You see it go everywhere? I was at doing a demo for a club. It's been 7 or 8 years ago. And they had a brand new screen. They just got this screen out in front of them. And they were proud of this thing. And I meant to slow the lathe down more than I did. And I went to do that. And it went, put a wet line right down the middle of the screen. This brand new piece of plexiglass or Lexan. And I thought the president of the club was going to have a heart attack right there in front of me. I said, don't worry, I'll get it off. And it came right off with some cleaner later. So it wasn't a big issue, but it certainly did startle him and me both. All right. That, folks, needs to dry just a little bit. We're going to help it out. I'm just using that as a sealer because in a moment I'm going to put some color on here. And if I don't put a sealer on it and dry it a little bit, this dye is going to bleed right through that end grain and you're going to see it on the inside. Does anybody know the difference between dye and paint?
Pigment?
Well, not exactly. They both have 4 major components. Now, sometimes it's the same component. They have pigments. They have a vehicle or a carrier, as they call it. That's what kind of dilutes it all. They have a binder, which holds those pigments together, and then they have a dryer, which dries it out. Now, in the case of wood dyes, we've got a pigment that's small enough that it can be drawn into the cell of the wood itself, okay? We've got a carrier, which is alcohol. We have no binder at all because we don't want it to bind to anything. We don't want it to sit on the top. And the dryer is also alcohol. So basically, if you were to buy some real fine dye pigments, and you can buy them from DARPA or a couple of other companies sell them mostly for fabric. But remember, a piece of cotton fabric is almost the same cell structure is this wood. So you can buy a cloth dye and mix it with, usually it's designed to mix with water. Doesn't mix really well with alcohol, but it will, and you can use it in place. I use this because as far as I know, Chromacraft's the only company that actually makes spray dye. And I normally cover my lathe, but we're not going to do that. We're gonna spray a little on here because the lathe's been sprayed before. I'm gonna put a little color on it. And the sanding sealer I put on here is gonna stop this dye from going in very deep. You'll see it. See how it looks kind of mottled here? That's because it's sitting on top like paint. Now, it would be easier, since I want it to sit on top like paint, to actually use some paint, but that would require me to get an airbrush out. This doesn't require an airbrush, and it's quick. And I happen to like this color too. When this dries, it'll look a lot less mottled than it does now. All right. A little bit. A little run in it. All right. So what happened is that dye is an alcohol-based dye, and that lacquer thinner I just put on here, or that lacquer I just put on here, uses lacquer thinner to thin it. And it turns out that lacquer thinner is mostly acetone, and acetone and alcohol kind of will intermix. So that this dye actually bled into that lacquer. So I've actually turned this dye into paint because I've allowed the pigments to sit on top. So that's what we've got now. We're gonna cut a few accent lines in it. I'm putting this, you can't see this. Let me slide it up here a little bit where you can see it. I'm putting this little homemade nylon block on here to put some pressure on here when I cut into the side of this, because I don't think this thing is fitting really well. If I was actually making a box at home, I would have gone back and recut that lid. But since we kind of got a late start anyway, I'm glad we pretty much have the bugs out of it at the moment. And I'm just going to bring this up where it touches. Okay, so I want the end of my box to be about right here. Let's say right about here, somewhere about right there. This is that tool nobody wants to use, but let me tell you, I'm fixing to use a parting tool here. And if I were to go in there with my parting tool to start with, if I brought this parting tool in here to start with, it's going to tear this sharp corner up on both sides. It's going to tear up here and here, and I'm going to do it over here too. So what the skew is doing for me is it's allowing me to get a nice clean line here. You have to be careful though, because sometimes those, you hear them, sometimes they want to grab it and skate it. So tonight I'm going to be lucky and not have that happen for me. And then I'm going to make another one right here. Right there. Let's make it right there. Okay, that gives me some clean lines to work with. I come in here with my thin parting tool. We're going to hide that line right there where the box comes together. We're going to hide that. I'm going to come right here. All right, down here, that's going to be the end. Let me put another line in here. Put another line right here. Just leave it. So I'm gonna put a burn line here, here, here. I didn't quite get out. Everybody see that? That didn't quite get all the dye out. I'm gonna go back and take a little more of it out. I'm gonna put a burn line at each of those. That's gonna hide that that line where I didn't fit it very well together. Take a little bit more out here. Probably I didn't get my sanding sealer down in these bottom really well. My sanding sealer probably didn't go down in these cracks really well here. And so when my dye hit it, it ran on through and I had a little run through. See, I've still got some there. We're gonna let it go. I'm gonna use a little wire burner here. This is a homemade wire burner. I do some welding. This is a 023 wire. When we do welding, there's 3 different sizes of welding wire. There's 023, there's 030, and there's 035, and there's a bigger one, which we don't use. But all 3 of them are good, strong, high-strength wire. They make excellent things to make homemade burning wire with, and you don't have to spend that $9.95 or whatever it is at Craft Supply. You can make your own. You can also go to an instrument store, you know, where they're doing guitars or pianos or anything, and they always have broken pieces of this. And I'm sure they'll be glad to give it to you. I've never asked because I've always had this, but I've had other people tell me that they'll be glad to give it to you. So we're going to burn this line right here. We're going to use that groove we cut, put some pressure on there, burn it in. We're going to burn it right here. I really want to burn. There it is. Not enough pressure. We're going to burn it right here. And we're going to burn it right here. All right. We're going to part it off right there when we finish. Any questions so far? You guys, I don't really worry too much about my time since we've gone doing these things online, because I figured if anybody needs to go early, they'll just kind of kick out. If you want,
Jack, I'm going to unmute everyone.
okay.
Okay, if you've got a question, now's a good time to ask it.
Any reason you didn't burn in the actual parting line?
This parting line here,
Yeah.
it already shows.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's already visible. I burnt those other 2 lines and I burned them a little bigger than I normally do, try and hide it.
Ah.
So let me tell you about this little booger right here. And I don't know if
We
other
can't
people
see
have
it. We can't see it.
right here. You can't see that right there?
Oh, now we can.
Okay. This little corner right here is kind of hard to do because you don't really have enough room to get a spindle gouge up in here and get it on the bevel and roll it. You know, if you were rolling a bead, you know, you'd come over here to start your bead and you roll into it. Well, I've got a shoulder right here, so I can't get a spindle tool over far enough to roll a bead. And I made the mistake probably 5 or 6 years ago when I got to this point. I had a spindle gouge in my hand. I said, yeah, I can do that. Well, it startled me so much when it caught and went that I immediately stuck it in the second time and did it worse. So I've learned to do it a different way. This is just a bigger parting tool. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in here very, very gently here, and I'm gonna kind of start rolling that edge over with it. Just a little scraping motion. Right on around. Now if I'm lucky and I don't mess this up, I can use this shoulder right here and I can get my spindle gouge in here. Or I can't. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. It didn't startle me that time though, folks.
It startled me, Jack.
No, thank you. Rudy, did I ever tell you I love you, man?
Are you going to have to reburn that top line now?
I don't think so. I'm gonna look at it here in a minute. I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this in like this. Wasn't the way I wanted to do it, but it's the way I'm gonna do it. Take a look at it. Yeah, remember the difference between turning for 10 years and turning for 2 years is you learn how to hide your mistakes, right?
That's it. That is the skill of a good craftsman, Jack.
Yeah. What you don't learn is to quit while you're ahead. You always think, oh, I can get that a little bit better. Yeah, I know I can do that better. Okay, so there we are so far. That lid is, see how tight that lid is? We'll loosen that up. Now we're going to do a little quick hollow. I'm not going to hollow it all the way because you guys know how to hollow something. But the nice thing about hollowing is you can hollow. I'll tell you what, somebody asked me the other day why I didn't use a Forstner bit. And I told them the reason I didn't use a Forstner bit is because that wood's really, really hard. It doesn't want to cut. It produces a lot of heat. And the Forstner bit swells the wood up, and then the lid doesn't want to fit. And unless I wait a while for the wood to cool down, I can't resize my lid. But you know what? I've got a brand new Forstner bit here that I pulled out. I put a 600 grit diamond hone on it and made sure it was really sharp. And let's just see what it'll do. I mean, I messed up enough tonight where another mess up won't hurt anything. Nobody will be surprised with it. All right. All right.
Hey, Jack,
Yes.
I like to use Micah Solling's hook tool, which really
Now,
does.
I do use a hook tool a lot. I have a homemade hook tool that I don't have to drill a hole with. Let's try this and see how it works. You can use a hook tool. I'm not a big fan of carbide tools, but if you like carbide tools, this is where they really actually shine, is, you know, as a scraping tool, is to getting in something like cutting end grain. If you can't use a hook tool, I'm actually going to go to a hollowing tool here in a minute to show you. I just want to see if this is going to work or see how it's going to work. Okay, we got our Forstner, we got a good grip on it. Let's see if it's going to. That's extremely, extremely hot right there. All those shavings are coming out really hot. Yeah, that's not going to work. I'd have to do that really, really slow for that to work. So we're going to quit with that. We're going to come in here with a hollowing tool. I have a Trent Bosch hollowing tool, and I'll tell you what I like about it.
Can you show us the end stock camera? What results did you get with the Forstner
Yeah.
bit?
I can do that. There's what I got. So it cut it pretty well, and it would work if I wanted to take the time to slow down, but that's actually as far as I need to go for this demonstration. I don't need to keep hollowing it. This is a Trent Bosch. Let me go back to this other camera. This is a Trent Bosch system here, and what I like about it is this. I need another tool rest. There it is. I have a big Cobra system that, you know, takes me 10 minutes. If anybody else has ever used one, it takes me about 10 minutes to hook it up. It's heavy. It will pinch the tar out of you. This one's really, really, really simple. That's a really nice guy, too, if you ever have problems. So, Rudy, you could chime in here and tell some stories about that now.
Yeah,
All right.
those are excellent. I started prototyping when he was first making them, and I thought it was ingenious that he incorporated the tool rest so that you, like you said, you just pick the whole thing up, take it out.
Yep. All right, so here's what we've got. We've got our tool set on center because I've already had it I've got it stopped down here where it stays on center for this tool. We're going to bring it up. Here again, this is one of those tools that I found in this hard end grain works better, you know, a little bit slower. I've got it at about a little less than 600 RPMs. And we're just going to start to hollow. This is the way I actually hollow. And you can see it's actually pretty quick way to do it. It doesn't take a long time. I can do it faster with this than I can a hook tool. And let me come across this bottom so you can see the cut it makes. And the advantage of a hook tool is it's fast and it leaves a really nice cut. That's a pretty good cut there, people. Let me see if I can help you out here just a little bit. Oops, sorry. Turn that off. Go to this one. That's pretty smooth in there. Now, that's all I'm going to hollow. I can actually come back later and I'll jam chuck this thing and hollow it on out some more. I actually may not save this one. It might not be worth saving. Let's go back to our tool rest here. What we want to do that's critical again is I want to get this part of the shoulder right here square, because I'm going to turn around and put this on a chuck here in just a minute, and I'm going to have to have this square for it to stay on the chuck. And all I'm going to do is use the chuck as a jam tool. I'm not actually using it as a chuck. All right, so let's square this up just a little bit. This needs to be square. That should do it. Questions? All right, now we can part it off. Nope, not yet. What did I tell everybody to remind me to do?
Put the lid on.
That's right. This lid is still fairly tight. Actually, it's not too tight now. It's fitting better than it did. So I'm going to live with that. That's not bad at all. Whenever you relieve wood, you should know that it's going to move. I don't care whether it's kiln dried or it isn't kiln dried. It's going to move a little bit. I don't think something was exactly square here, but we'll go on. All right, so we got that. Now we're going to part this thing off. We'll come right here where we made our line. Part it off. Same process we used before. We're going to come just to the outside of that skew line so we leave that nice and sharp. We're going to use about 1.5 times the width of this. But in this case, I'm going to go in straight, fairly straight. We'll concave this bottom just a little bit later.
Jack, before you take that off completely, don't you normally, from a design perspective, make that last little segment wood colored?
Yeah, I'd cut that out sometimes. I thought I'd leave it this time.
Okay.
I don't have to do them all the same.
Jack, I think you did a great job on this box. I'm really impressed. Thank you.
Well, I'll be honest, I've done a lot better in my presentations, but I think that, I'll be honest with you, we were late with dinner. We had some technical issues. I got frustrated, you know.
Well,
And I
Jack,
think
you succeeded in doing a demonstration that makes us want to try that ourselves.
So here's what
Not
we got now.
intimidated.
Here's what we've got now. Okay, we could cut this down and jam chuck that on here. You guys don't have one of these. Harbor Freight is really cheap. They come in a pack of 2. Sometimes it's kind of a lifesaver, getting things back off. I'm gonna move this because I'm fixing to bust my knuckles on it if I don't. That was on there. There was a little spacer bar piece I told you about earlier. Go with that. I got a chuck here. Spin it on here. Make sure we're gonna be able to deal with that. Yeah, okay. This chuck obviously is not designed to fit this size recessed. So we cheat a little. We're only gonna, when we come out here, we're only gonna get contact point in 4 places right in the middle here. We're not gonna get any edge contact. I'll bring this out till it's almost tight. It's tight right there. I'm gonna go back in just a little bit where I've got that much slack. Remember I introduced you to this Woodturners friend here. I'm gonna take this. This is the non-sticky side right here, and I'm gonna roll it non-sticky side to non-sticky side. I'm gonna set it right there just like this. I'm gonna follow it all the way around. I'm gonna come back inside, tear it off. Slide this box up on here. I see this board's not working really well. Expand this out. I don't want to come out too far with it because I don't want to break it. I just want it to be tight enough where it doesn't slip. All right. Now, if I get a catch, it's coming off, obviously. So we're going to try and do this catch free here. And it's not running exactly true. All right. This is the night that nothing's going to work. Let's try again. This actually, I do this with bowls sometimes. I put a little piece of reverse tape.
Can't hear it.
Actually, I'll tell you how I do it while I'm talking. I actually take the thing of tape, the whole roll of tape, and I set it on here and I expand these jaws out to actually hold the roll of tape. And then I do this around the edge of the roll of tape. That gives me a soft cushion. So I take this, I put it on here, I expand it out, I put roll of tape on the edge of this. You can put a bowl on it, bring your tailstock up. When you finish and you need to remove your tailstock, you actually physically have to pull it off of this tape. It doesn't look like it'll hold much, but it will be stuck on there pretty good. So, all right, let's try this again, see if we get it run true. Oh, better. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can do this without knocking it off. I'm holding a lot of pressure with the bevel of my bowl gouge on this piece of wood. And it still can't loose. I'm almost to the point of being entertained now. I was frustrated now I'm entertained. All right. That could use a little bit more work, but we're going to leave it because obviously nothing else is working for us tonight. We're going to put a little design in the bottom of it.
Will you show us the end stock, please?
Well, I will if I can find that camera. About right now. See, I got a little bit of tool marks right here where it came loose a little bit. So I can see it better. We're going to come back in here with the same texture tool. We're going to do we're going to texture a little bit right here. Come out, texture again right here. Come out, texture right here. We'll grab our little tool. Let me show you another way to do this. It's a little bit quicker. When you got a bunch of them like this, you go ahead and just box not working very true. All right, this ought to be interesting. Box coming loose again. Let's give it a try. One more somewhere. Right there. Oops. All right. There's our bottom. Little neural marks. Our side. Our lid that doesn't fit really good. Couple of coats of lacquer. Unbox. Hopefully you'll have better luck with your tools than I have tonight, but that's kind of part of what wood turning is about sometimes. Questions?
I'll unmute everyone.
Do you ever put an embellishing wax on the bottom?
What I usually do is just put a couple of coats of lacquer on it. And on a box like this, I use the cheapest lacquer, spray lacquer I can find, because it's not really, you're not going to get any more details out of it than you've got. So there's no reason to buy the $11 a can lacquer. I use the $6 a can lacquer on sale somewhere. And it seems to work fine. So I'll fix this lid a little bit. I'll re-hollow it. I'll send it to you guys, and you can do whatever you do with pieces. Other questions?
Do you ever dye the wood first and then texture, and does that give you a different effect?
I haven't tried it.
Okay.
Yes, it would give you a different effect. I've done this, textured them, and I've done two other things. I put like a liming wax, a black liming. It's not called liming wax, but it's called a black effects wax in here to bring out all these lines in black. I've also textured it and sprayed it, and then used a gill cream on top. The gill cream doesn't go into the grooves. It sits on the top, so the lines look the color you dyed it or painted, and then you have the gill cream on top. And you can do all that before you do your cuts on it, and or you can do it afterwards.
How deep does that dye typically penetrate? I know it depends on the species of the wood, but on a hard maple like that, I'm assuming it's not going very deep.
Oh, on this end grain, it'll go a good 1/8 of an inch.
Okay, so that's deeper than the tool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You put like a thinner in it for.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you. Somebody asked me something, and I didn't understand you. Okay. Anything else? Other questions?
Jack, I think you did a great job meeting all the challenges. And again, that's really a neat box.
Thank you. Well, hey, I got through the challenges. That's the best I can say. Sometimes they're challenging, and do the best you can. But everybody's going to run into these problems. I learned a long time ago. Don't let and Rudy will tell you, I advocate for everybody. I mean, everybody to do a demonstration in the Bell Club. when I was president, we started a mentorship program where we put somebody with an experienced demonstrator to go up front and help them demonstrate so they'd get past that critical thinking of they can't do it or they're afraid they'll mess up, because everybody messes up. You guys mess up in your shop. There's no reason why Rudy and I don't mess up when we stand in front of people. A lot of times when we mess up, you don't see it. Tonight, I just had one of those where it was kind of obvious. So, and you get through it. Don't ever let that stop you from doing a demonstration or helping other people learn to turn, because it's part of it. They're going to do it. You're going to do it. So, questions? I have nothing.
I'm going to unmute or take the spotlight off you. So
Okay.
now as people talk, we'll see their face.
Okay. And nobody's going to talk. All right, folks, that's it. Thank you for having me. I'll finish it up.
We
Finish
really
it up, send it
appreciate
to
it,
you.
Jack.
You're welcome. Have a
Good
nice
job.
night.
Thanks, Jack.
Yes, sir.
Good job.
I guess we'll call that adjourned then.
That's up to y'all. I'm done.
Hey, down
Yeah.
part. The down part. This
You'll
is
send out the information for July's meeting then?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Stephanie, do you have a way to quickly put my email address up?
I do.
Okay.
Who do you have set up for July, Jim?
Problem was.
So going on?
Tim?
I have a question. If I'm on mute.
Go ahead, Don.
Do they use, can you use a termite just as well as the tool you use to hollow?
Ask that again, Don?
Can you use a termite?
Yes. Yes, you can use any tool that'll cut in grain. Any tool that'll cut in grain will be fine for hollowing. The only problem, you can even use a bowl gouge. The problem is when you get far enough down into the bowl, you're not going to be able to keep it on a level. You can swap to a spindle gouge if you got a good sized spindle gouge and kind of use the wing down through the middle. You're going to have a problem in the corners. But yeah, anything that'll cut in grain, you can hollow with.
Okay, thank you.
There's my email address and my phone number. If anybody wants to ask me questions later, send me some email and I'll be glad to answer them. If you call me on the phone and I don't answer, please leave me a message, because a lot of times my phone, if it doesn't recognize the incoming phone number, it doesn't ring. I don't hear it ring. It just goes straight to voicemail. If it
Just
does
like
that,
mine.
yeah, if it does that, you'll need to leave me just a short email asking me to, that you saw me on Tricounty and when I call you back, and I will be glad to call you back.
So,
Well, thank you, folks.
All right. I'm going
thanks
to,
much.
you're very welcome. I'm going to shut down the meeting. So
Okay.
if you're still on, it's going to stop.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.